This conversation on whether or not college is actually worth it is not cut and dry. And the realities of a necessary level of education or skills needed to operate effectively in the workforce has changed over the past couple of years. Now, there are a few examples that we can knock out of the way right away. If you want to be a doctor or a lawyer, yes, college is still worth it. It's not only worth it, it's actually necessary. You have to do it, and probably do it pretty well, to even get into the next step, which would be the postgraduate programs that you have to study to ultimately get the licenses that you need to practice medicine or law. Conversely, there are tons of people out there, probably millions of people out there, who are perfectly fine doing things like maybe bussing tables in a restaurant or other tasks that aren't going to require a university degree to get into a position, and hopefully a good position doing them. So in those scenarios, going to college is definitely not worth it, especially considering the amount of debt that you'll have to go into to get through college, which we're going to cover in depth later on in this video. There are some very valuable soft skills that you'll learn during those maybe 3 to 5 years of undergraduate university studies that I know I really needed to develop as a functioning adult when I was 18 years old. But the primary reason for most people to attend college or university would be to achieve a certain level of education necessary to get into the field that they want to work in throughout their working years of their lives, which, if you aren't aware, is a really big deal. What you spend the majority of your life doing will make a difference towards your quality of life. If you're someone who isn't yet in college or university, or maybe in your freshman year, let me share an unpopular opinion here. Despite what all of the nice guidance counselors in high school and all of the loving family members in your life tell you, it is extremely inefficient, very costly, and borderline irresponsible to start your college or university journey while still having no idea what you want to do for a career. The common message out there given to young people is that you're okay, you have time, you don't need to decide what you want to do, you can just do all your gen ed classes in the first year or first few semesters. And those things are somewhat true, but what those people aren't telling you is that you're going to likely spend more than the minimum amount of time needed to get through college. You're going to end up having to take additional credits than you otherwise would have. It's going to cost you more money, and you're kind of going to flounder for at least a couple of years of your life trying to make that decision later on. And trust me, I understand that making that decision earlier in life can be difficult. I'm not saying it's easy to do. I'm saying sometimes it's important to force yourself to do difficult things and make difficult decisions earlier on so that the ramifications of those decisions can be more beneficial to your life. To finalize that point then, if you do decide that college or university is worth it for you, also make the decision on what you want to do. Or maybe if you don't yet know what you want to do, then you might decide for yourself that college or university is likely not worth it, knowing that you might just take a year or two of classes that aren't ultimately going to count towards your major, and you're going to have to pay more for additional classes in the future. It really does matter that you decide a field that you want to get into. And you don't have to stick in that field for your entire career, but you're going to get so much more value out of your early 20s if you expedite this process. Shifting gears a little bit towards the cost of college, if one of the big arguments for college or university not being worth pursuing is the cost of those programs, you can almost certainly get over that hurdle by starting off taking 2 years at a junior college. I'm going to be honest with you here. Unless you're trying to get into a very top level position in whatever field you want to work in, no one's going to care all that much if you did your first 2 years of university at a junior college just getting cheap credits, and then finished the second 2 years and graduated from a major university. The diploma is still going to say the major university's name on it. You're going to say you graduated from XYZ University. You're just going to have saved yourself a lot of money and probably some time too. Now, if you want to do the doctor, lawyer, hedge fund thing, again, all top areas in those fields, you probably need to do all 4 years at Harvard or Stanford or whatever else you choose to do, but that's not the majority of us. So although I totally understand that college or university can be prohibitively expensive, I'm kind of going to ignore that argument because of the points that I just shared. You can get around a lot of those costs. And furthermore, the 2 years that you are attending the what I'll call more expensive university, I think sometimes high school students don't realize how much financial aid a lot of universities provide to its students. I'm not talking about FAFSA or Pell Grant or any federal subsidies. I'm just saying universities will decrease the price of tuition if your family is below a certain socioeconomic class, and in a lot of cases I feel like that class is pretty high. I can say that for my 6 or 8 closest friends in university, only one of us I know was actually paying full tuition prices and his parents were paying it. The majority of us got some level of financial aid from the college just because of our parents' income levels. And then finally, the costs that do remain, you'll finance with student loans. And student loans are a fine idea if you take the point I made earlier on in this video very seriously and stick to one field so that you can get a pretty good job when you start off on your career after college. You'll be able to pay your student loan payments pretty comfortably. Now, if you major in philosophy or history or gender studies or things that don't actually teach you marketable skills for the workplace, then you're probably going to end up with a lot of student loan payments that you can't afford, and that would be problematic. So all of that is to say that the money can be worth it. I know it's expensive, but there are ways to reduce those costs, and the costs that you inevitably will incur, if you do it right, I think should be worth it. You shouldn't have to let the rising and ridiculous costs of some of these college or university degrees be the deciding factor for you. In my opinion, the thing that should be the deciding factor on whether or not college or university is worth it, and this is really the core of my argument, is if you are going to be able to pursue the career and ultimately the life that you want without having to waste, in my opinion, those 4 years learning things that you might not actually need to know. Can you get the job you want without the college degree? It's kind of that easy. And the answer to that question in our world today is becoming slowly but surely more and more yes. From what I've seen, there are drastically more fields that are offering positions that are great after university starting roles that you can get into without that college degree or maybe just with a 2-year degree. Be careful there though, because it's probably not more than 50% of fields that offer good entry-level jobs to people without university degrees. So while I do think the number is rising, it's not the majority of fields out there. If you're new to this channel, I did go through a 4-year university program studying finance. I decided I wanted to do that when I was about 13 years old. I studied it, did okay at it in college, but then I got a good job in my field right after college, so I made the degree worth it. And I don't love academics. I really don't like academics all that much at all. But I would certainly say for my field, I needed to get that degree. The only way to get into wealth management, which is what I do, without a university degree and getting hired into a good entry-level job, is by starting your own business, which really is just cold calling people and trying to get them to invest their money with you. Plus, actually, you'd have to have a company sponsor you for the licensing exam, so you'd need to get hired in somewhere at some point, and without a university degree, that'd be difficult. My field's kind of one where it's a requirement. But my boss didn't finish college. He did it without going through that requirement, and he's wildly successful. All right, my camera died, so now it's the next day, but the point there was my boss doesn't have a college degree and is able to aggressively grow his own business earlier on and is continuing to do that in the later stages of his career. The reason I mention that is that it brings up the next important scenario, which is entrepreneurship, and if you want to do something on your own. In my opinion, really the only formal education that would be all that helpful towards the building of your own business would be maybe in accounting, because it helps you know your numbers and make financial projections and maybe do your own bookkeeping and things like that. Outside of training you on the logistics of bookkeeping, any other formal education you get is just not going to be as valuable as the real world experience that someone gains when starting a business towards running that very business. Maybe you could make an exception here and say that once a business is doing 5 million in revenue per year, growing that to 25 million in revenue per year requires the managerial skills that an MBA or a master's in business could provide. And there's probably some truth to that, but you got to get from 0 to 5 million first, and knowing how to do algebra or knowing the history of Europe or understanding psychology of people, none of that's going to be as beneficial to building your business as working on building your business. In entrepreneurship, just getting out there and doing it is what I think is going to be the most helpful for your career. And I'm sure some of you won't be surprised by hearing me say that, because many of us know business owners who did not go to college themselves, which makes it odd that many of them do require their employees to have college degrees. I don't totally understand that. But in their defense, most people are hiring haven't gone through the grueling years of starting a business from the ground up like they have. And so maybe the university degree is acting as sort of a replacement to that foundational learning. Another growing sector of our economy that is further making university and college degrees less necessary is trade schools. Trade schools are extremely efficient at teaching young people how to effectively do their job in various different skilled fields. If you want to be an electrician, if you want to be a mechanic on wind turbines, if you want to be a welder, all of those things don't require the unnecessary education that colleges provide. They do require a lot of real-world experience at those trades and some formal education that will teach you how certain things work and move in those fields, but actually getting out there and doing it, working under someone who has a lot more experience through something like an apprenticeship is a lot more valuable than algebra would be. And maybe you're not aware, but skilled labor is a shortage, and I think the shortage is only going to get worse. There's a lot of demand out there to hire skilled plumbers, wind turbine mechanics, whatever else you can really think of as a skilled trade. There are just not enough young people out there right now doing these trade schools. Many of them are unsure of what they want to do, so they're paying $20,000 a year in universities, wasting their time and money, and not helping out the economy all that much because they're going to throw away 5 years before they actually start doing something beneficial. If you're someone who has an interest in working in a trade, you might consider spending time learning that trade right after high school rather than going to college, university, and then deciding if you like it or not. If you don't, you can always go back to get a 2 or 4 year degree later on. Not to mention, many skilled trades pay way more than entry-level office jobs, most administrative jobs, some mid-level managerial jobs. Plus you're going to get 401k match, sometimes pensions still in union jobs. So there are a lot of benefits to working skilled blue-collar jobs compared to, again, wasting time and doing something you're just not going to enjoy doing. Now, the final point of this video, I'm going to use a personal example, but I think this theme will apply to some of you as well. One very beneficial aspect of my 4 years of college was that it taught me how to not be such an idiot. And don't get me wrong, I'm still an idiot today, but maybe not in the same ways that I was when I was 18 and 19 years old. And maybe you're not an idiot like I was, but maybe you are less responsible than other people. Maybe you're not comfortable doing things on your own. There are a lot of soft skills that leaving the nest, so to speak, and going off to a college or university will force you to learn such that you're going to be better off later in life. So there is some value to the soft skills or the process of moving on from your parents to living with some friends in college. So for me, again, that was learning when to not say stupid things that I find funny, but the majority of human beings do not. When to not act like an immature middle schooler, even though I still feel like one on the inside. You get the gist. For other people, it could be teaching you basic skills about like communicating with adults. I remember some of my friends in high school were scared to call the pizza delivery line to order a pizza because they didn't want to have to deal with a phone conversation. There's a weird behavioral psychology and anxiety that comes with that, but that's a separate issue. There are plenty of issues that I'm sure spending 4 years at college or university, learning to really sort of become an adult can help you overcome. And it can be a beneficial stage in life. Now, is it worth paying $100,000 or generating $100,000 in debt to learn those things? I don't know. We'll leave it at that. Thanks for sticking around. Let me know what you think, if college is still worth it or not, in the comment section down below. I read them all. I'll reply to them. And if you could like this video and subscribe to the channel as well if you haven't yet already, I very much appreciate it. As always, have a good one.